There's something chilling about silence. Not the kind found in abandoned buildings or empty forests, but the silence that lives just beneath thought, the kind that lingers at the edge of sleep or memory. That's where The Shadow's Edge begins, not with a scream or an explosion, but with that exact silence, a void that speaks louder than words, an emptiness that weighs. For years, whispers about this story floated around the industry, not because of its budget or its cast, but because of what it dared to explore. A film that isn't about heroes or villains in the traditional sense, but about the unseen battles that rage in the mind, about the places people fear to look and the shadows they pretend not to see. It was said to be too strange, too internal, too layered, but that was the point. This wasn't a story built for comfort. It was built like a maze, and not everyone would find the center. The first spark reportedly came from a series of dreams, written down obsessively by a reclusive creator who had once vanished from the spotlight for nearly a decade. Those dreams became sketches, then fragments of dialogue, then a screenplay so abstract and deeply psychological that most studios passed on it without blinking. But one quietly took the risk, not for profit, but for the chance to break cinematic form. The film was greenlit not as a traditional production, but as a long-form visual meditation. Scenes would bleed into one another, time would fracture, character identities would overlap, reality itself would remain unreliable. The Shadow's Edge, from the very beginning, was never going to be straightforward. It was always going to ask one terrifying question. If you wandered far enough into your own reflection, would you still be yourself when you returned? The film opens with a man waking in a room with no doors, no windows, just a soft ticking. Not mechanical, but organic, like a heartbeat just out of sync. He's unnamed at first. His eyes dart, his hands shake. He doesn't scream, doesn't panic. He simply asks, "What did I forget?" That question becomes a refrain, echoing through his every step. He finds a crack in the corner of the room, not on the wall, but in the air itself, like reality has been poorly stitched together. He touches it, and the film changes. The floor warps, the walls shudder, a corridor appears. Not built, not discovered, remembered. That's the twist. The world of The Shadow's Edge isn't found, it's recalled. It exists only because someone once dreamed it and then forgot. The man is not escaping a prison, he's descending into a memory, one he locked away. As the story unfolds, identities blur. The man, who eventually reveals his name as Eli, encounters versions of himself at different stages of life. As a child holding a broken watch, as a teenager covered in ash, as an older version who says nothing but holds a key made of shadow. Each version is broken in a different way. One has no eyes. One repeats the same phrase over and over, "She never left." The plot reveals that Eli was part of something called the Fold, an experimental psychological procedure designed to isolate and neutralize trauma by removing it from conscious memory and storing it in a neural construct. The procedure worked too well. The trauma didn't just vanish, it grew sentient, it built a world, and now it wants him back. The realm of The Shadow's Edge isn't fantasy in the traditional sense. It's surreal, a shifting, dreamlike landscape where buildings breathe, mirrors lie, and time loops in subtle, sinister ways. One moment, Eli walks through a hallway of infinite doors, each labeled with a regret. The next, he's speaking to a version of his mother made entirely of smoke, who tells him she's proud of him but never moves her lips. The world reacts to his choices. When he lies, the sky fractures. When he remembers something painful, the floor tilts like a sinking ship. The deeper he goes, the more the world becomes unstable. But the question isn't just whether he'll survive, it's whether he wants to.